Horror comes in many forms. Let's talk to director Natalie Erika James about her film Relic. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore. I am pleased to be joined by director Natalie Erika James today on the Film Threat Podcast to talk about her film Relic, which was very well received at the Sundance Film Festival. I was not at that screening. I was cowering in my living room after I watched your film. It's
oh, wonderful.
Oh, yes. Well, it's first of all an amazing cast, an amazing location for this. I think location's a big part of horror, but also I really want to talk to you about the tone of this film. Relic is not like any horror film I've seen in recent years. It's I would say it defies all traditions and all expectations, which I think is something that you really want, which is why I think that independent horror films are always the best ones to see. How did you develop this concept, and what was in your head about the tone and the feelings you wanted to imbue upon the audience?
Yeah, I guess for me, I had a personal experience with my grandmother having Alzheimer's, and that's really where the film came from. And so the aim of the film has always been in exploring those feelings and I guess the emotional truth of that experience in, a really honest manner, and not, I guess, resorting to not honoring the horror above the truth of that experience. And so I think horror is the perfect vehicle to tell this story, really, because it deals with fear, and that includes fear of, your parents dying, their mortality, as well as your mortality, the fear of losing yourself as someone with Alzheimer's. And yeah, so I really felt like it was the perfect way to tell the story and genre to tell the story in, but also that it was, remained above all kind of emotionally truthful. So I think that's where the tonal balance comes from, because certainly in the development process, it was a conversation we had a lot. And, I feel like inevitably some people want to push the horror and some people want to push the drama. So it was a constant balance.
Well, they do work well in balance. I mean, it's 3 generations of women. It's mothers, daughters, grandmother, and I don't want to give too much away, because some of the best stuff just happens. The last third of the movie is really harrowing, unexpected. And again, not like a traditional horror movie where you've got those. There are some jump scares. I'm going to be honest. There are a couple places that where you got me, but how did you get Emily Mortimer involved? I'm such a huge fan of hers. She's fantastic.
Me too.
Yeah, she's great. Amazing. How did you get her and this cast? They really had to work together, because it really is, in some ways, it is partially a family drama as well.
Yes, completely. So, I mean, I guess casting is quite different when you're working with veteran actors. Everything I'd done previously, there's an audition process and all that kind of thing. But with the core creative team of Relic, we just had these big conversations about how the 3 were going to work. It's always tricky casting family too, because they also have to look kind of vaguely, passably similar. But so we had a lot of discussion about it. But when Emily's name came up, it was kind of a bit of an aha moment. And luckily, I was able to meet her when I was in New York for a film festival, and she just responded so well to the script, and I think she really understood from the get-go what my intention was for it. I also feel like we never approached it as a horror film. It was kind of almost just the is a consideration, but from an acting perspective, we just approached it like a straight drama. So yeah, I loved working with her, and all three of them were wonderful in their own ways as well. I feel very lucky.
Well, the cast certainly grounds it in a reality. I mean, it's being I guess you can put it in the horror genre, but it sort of definitely transcends that. I feel like the drama is the thing that grounds it in the reality. Tell me about the see, I don't want to give away too much, but there are some makeup effects, which is something you see in a lot of horror films, but they're not used in the same way in this.
Yeah.
Some things that are, and I'm not a person, even though my last name is Gore. Oddly, I'm not really into gore. When it comes to horror, I prefer more psychological horror, which is, I think, that what you were going for. So tell me about working with some of those makeup effects in there, but utilizing them in a way that it defies our expectations.
Yeah, I'm much the same. I'm not a big fan of torture porn, or I'm not a big blood gore kind of person. I don't mind it, but just not a massive interest of mine. And so, yeah, certainly in making this, I have always been a big fan of practical effects. And so in terms of the prosthetics that are in the film, and the effects in general, I'd say probably 70% was practical, and then 30% was VFX, and usually to just heighten things or clean up wires, that kind of work. So yeah, there's a massive, obviously it's a spoiler, but there's a massive prosthetic element that we spent a lot of time designing. And I guess from a design perspective, we really sought to capture things that felt like something that felt organic, so it wasn't too out of this world, and I guess really human. So we looked at references of lots of mummified corpses, as well as I guess just looking at people at the end of their lives when they're kind of physically wasting away, which there's such a fragility and vulnerability to that we really tried to capture in the design. So I love prosthetics and all that stuff. It's really fun and quite technical as well. We had to break down Edna's transformation into probably like 9 stages, and just really consider at what point she jumps, or where those cuts and levels of deterioration were. So I don't know if that was a massive spoiler or not, but hopefully not too much.
No, I feel like you really can't talk about maybe the last 10, 15 minutes of the movie. We should probably avoid, but sure. I do appreciate knowing that there were some VFX in the movie, because I didn't notice them at all. It seemed like it was all practical effects. So when you don't notice the VFX, I think that's a job well done.
Yeah, awesome. I think it tends to age a bit better as well when you don't notice the VFX. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of the practical effects. What went into the sound design? That's another thing that I thought really stood out with the film, is the sound design, which totally added to the tone and whatnot. What went into that aspect of the film?
Yeah, it's interesting. We did have a composer and a sound designer, but they worked really closely together, and so both of them would record sounds and create. Like our composer has this studio in LA where he just has an amazing amount of toys and bizarre kind of instruments that he makes as well, to try and create those really uncanny sounds. We always really wanted it to be feel very natural as well, so nothing too electronic, and also honoring the Edna's character's kind of, I guess, age range, and so having a bit of a slightly older, I guess, sounds that didn't feel too modern, if that makes sense. And yeah, so the composer and the sound designer had a library of sounds that they'd amassed, and then they shared all that. So it really felt like the score was really tied deep into the sound design. I'm always a big fan of using like diegetic sound as well, so sounds that come from the world of the film and kind of emphasizing them or you know, changing them in some way to highlight psychological kind of states of mind. So yeah, it's pretty involving, very full on, but I do love sound design as well.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned earlier psychological horror. I
Mm-hmm.
think that that is the most effective. Like I'm good with jump scares, and I'm good with blood and gore used for effect.
Right.
It can be overused, like with anything, but psychological horror is the kind that you, especially with regard to the ending of your film, which I think we shouldn't talk about, but it's one of those you can't talk about, but it was completely unexpected. I felt melancholy, and I felt like I needed to kind of decompress and you know, sort of just let it work through my brain about everything you were trying to say with it. I am dancing around all of this, you can tell.
Yeah.
And so my apologies for that, but what have been people's reactions to it? Because I know mine was like a somber, because it isn't, look, your typical horror movie is which I love the original Halloween, you know, which is being chased with a knife. You're chased, which kind of also plays on, I believe, zombie movies and slasher movies play on kind of primal fears that we have, which is being chased. That's just sort of in our DNA, is we're being chased and we're trying to run away from something that's trying to get us. Your film, I believe, is a psychological horror that also deals with something that's primal within us, which is fear of getting older, fears of fear of death, and it's primal in that sense. How much were you thinking in terms of adding those aspects? And then I'm really curious about the reaction of the audience. I wasn't at the Sundance screening. I really wish I was, but I'm curious what people's reactions were to the film, because it really was one of those ones that stayed with me.
Oh, great. Yeah, you know, the ending hasn't really changed in intention and I guess message or takeaway since the very first draft. So I would say that is just so built into, you know, why I started to write the film in the first place. What else can I say? The Sundance screening, the feedback was amazing. Actually, I was so nervous going into it, so I was very pleased and blown away by particularly the people who came up to talk about their own experiences and how, I guess, how truthful or, you know, how much the ending really resonated with them. That, yeah, in particular, I think that was probably the best part of the screening, just to know that it had, you know, people had really connected with it, and that there was something there that felt like it expressed their experience in some way. Yeah, I think that was incredible.
Yeah, I think for myself, if you've ever had someone close to you that you've lost that was in hospice, and you're in the room, and it really sort of brought up those feelings. So
yeah,
I
think that's one of the things, that it's not, you know, it doesn't have to be specific to dementia and Alzheimer's. You know, it can be any sort of loss of a loved one that the film speaks to. So,
well, I'm so amazed by this movie, and I assume your work. Now, Relic is coming out. Is it coming to? I know a lot of the IFC movies have been coming to drive-ins lately, which I think is is it coming to drive-ins?
It is. It's released July 3rd, I believe. Yeah, I'm bummed I won't get to be there in the States, but yeah, I'm thrilled. The novelty of having it in a drive-in is pretty cool.
Yeah, well, drive-in, I personally love drive-ins. I mean, it's tailgating with movies. You can text and talk, and you're not going to bother anybody else, which is cool.
Perfect.
But not that that's something I would ever do. But I love drive-ins. I think they're awesome, and I'm so
I just
glad.
hope the sound holds up. You know what I mean? Like, I just hope the bass isn't too intense. Anyway,
No,
see.
it's good. It's
you
good.
can tell me if you go.
From personal experience, I've been to the drive-in recently, and I'll just say it's great because it comes through your radio. If you got good speakers in your car, which most people do these days, it is incredible. It's I would say even better than the theater. I think it's a more personal experience. So congratulations again. I want to thank our sponsor, storyblocks.com. Storyblocks is tools for filmmakers. Go to storyblocks.com/filmthreat. I also want to thank you, Natalie, for being on the Film Threat podcast. It's been great having you. Also, getting up so early in Australia to talk to us today.
Not at all. It was fun.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and congratulations on the film.
Thanks so much, Chris. Lovely chatting.
Take care.
See ya. Awesome.